Hello and welcome to Infrastructure Matters, the podcast dedicated to delivering and exploring the dynamic world of infrastructure, asset management and public works. I'm your host, David Jenkins, CEO of IPWA. In today's episode, we're tackling safety and innovation in utility management. Our special guest is Mell Greenall, CEO of Before You Dig Australia. We'll be discussing the organisation's mission to protect critical underground infrastructure, the challenges of aligning national policies, and the potential of digital platforms to transform asset mapping and safety practices. So as always, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's dive into the strategies reshaping Australia's utility management landscape. Stay tuned for an engaging conversation that promises valuable insights and practical advice. Okay, so I'm delighted that we've got Mell with us from Before You Dig Australia, and Mell is joining us, come over up from Melbourne today, and she's in Sydney, and we've had a nice lunch, and we're going to get straight into it. So Mell, could you just give us, for the audience, just a little bit of a background about Before You Dig Australia, what you do, why you do it, and why it's so important?
So most of your listeners would probably remember DAR Before You Dig. It's been around since the early 1980s. And in 2022, we merged the 7 state-based businesses into one single organisation called Before You Dig Australia. Yep. And that was really driven by our membership, which is the utility sector and asset owners across the country, to drive a greater focus on our partnership in safety and to drive innovation and change, which I'm thrilled to say that we're actively delivering on. Yep. So, I'm the CEO and I lead our team nationally and work very closely with our membership and the construction sector around what do we need to do in Australia to protect the critical infrastructure that's in the ground, but also the critical assets, which are people. And that's really my focus and what I get passionate about, and I can talk to the cows come home about it.
That's good. And I remember when we met probably about 3 years ago, I mean, just looking at what you've done and how you've really taken the organisation over these last 3 years. Certainly the profile I've noticed, and I know other people have noticed, you've certainly raised the profile of the whole organisation. But what's some of the what are the key challenges that you're facing now? But then put that under the context. But what opportunities does that also present?
Yeah, that's a big question because there's certainly a lot to do. Our biggest challenge at the moment, I really believe, is the impact or the limiting of innovation in this sector. Yep. We've got conflicting state legislation, we've got a federal legislation piece around the security of critical infrastructure, as well as the Foreign Investment Review Board wording in their policies. That's really stifling the ability for the utility sector and asset owners to move to a more digital environment that would allow for more accurate asset location data to be shared, to drive greater efficiencies through our projects, design and engineering stage, that would actually support then safer outcomes for the guys and girls actually digging holes in the ground. Yep. And how do we overcome that as an industry? And I think there's some really big, challenging conversations we have to have as an industry with both engineers, construction sector, the utilities and our governments to say, how are we going to get over this? How do we work to find a space that's safe for digital data to be shared? Because I'm not dismissing the concerns around cyber terrorism and cybersecurity. We have to take that seriously. But we have data from our utility members, which is through our damage data dashboard, that is validating that we're seeing at least 1,500 strikes on assets a month. Mm-hmm. That's 1,500 chances of someone not going home to their loved ones and family. Yep. It's 1,500 chances of businesses being disrupted. It's 1,500 chances of things just going horrifically wrong every month that we've normalised. So we have to address the fact that there's cyber terrorism risks, but there is what I also call lovingly the shovel terrorist that's hitting our networks every day. How are we going to work to fix that?
So, and I mean, I'm not discounting the people because it's, obviously the people side of things, as you've just very articulately put, we are talking about people's lives here. Yeah. But if we also, what about the dollar value? So the issue, it's not, because there's a cost here, right? So
absolutely.
So maybe you could put that into perspective as well.
So in 2017, the Birmingham University in UK released a research piece that said for every dollar spent on repairs, there was a $29 cost passed through to community through insurance premiums, project overlays, injuries, etc. So this year we've commissioned an independent economist to work with us to validate if that ratio stacks up for the Australian market. Yeah. So we're looking to publish that in October to really bring to light the cost. Because if the UK ratio stacks up for Australia, based on 13,000 strikes a year, and let's say there's an average cost of a $10,000 repair bill, we are talking a minimum of a $3.8 billion problem every year in this country that we've normalised. $3.8 billion of inefficiency that we've normalised.
And when you're talking in that quantum, it's significant. So, I mean, you've just presented a very compelling argument. Right? We've got the issue around people and lives, and then also the financial cost. So what's the barrier? What's preventing us then from? Why aren't we more aware of these? Why aren't what's not changing? Why is it not changing?
To be honest, we've just never talked about it.
Yeah,
we have never collectively as an industry measured the amount of damage that's happening every day.
Yeah.
So we've worked incredibly hard to work with the utility sector. And when I say that we've got a dashboard that's validating at the moment 13,000 strikes for 2023, that's underreported by about a third because there's no consistent requirement to capture third-party strikes on the utility networks in Australia. There's no consistent reporting mechanisms. There's no impost to do so. So if I look at that, I've got 15 tier 1 utilities reporting those stats. I've got 700 members. Yeah. So what is that number really? Yeah. And if I look, say, for example, at the water industry, most of them aren't reporting third-party damages at all. It's just reported as a burst or a leak. So it gets then operationalised. So again, we've never captured the data. So therefore we can't talk about the data. And therefore we can't put a cost to the data. So as an industry, again, we've kind of pushed everything into the Harry Potter cupboard. Yeah. And said, we kind of know some stuff's happening out there. It's a bit bad. Yeah. Versus we need to be honest about the size of the problem so that we can work together as an industry to find the solutions. Because hand on heart, I don't have all the answers here. I can see that there's a problem and I can bring people together to talk about it. But it's an industry problem that's going to take an industry solution. And all of us have to be willing to say, hey, this isn't okay anymore. We can do better. Because
it's complicated, isn't it? You've got the utilities, then even our members who are constructing things, developing assets, the construction firms. There's a number of different players in all this. So how do you bring all them together?
We bring everybody to the table. I think for a long time, as Dial Before You Dig, it was very utility-centric, and it was the conversation was very much seen from a utility or an asset owner viewpoint. I'm very passionate that it's one thing, that they're one voice at the table, but it's the guys and girls that are out there each and every day working out on site. It's the engineers, it's the consultants, it's the designers that actually understand every day what the risks are and what they're dealing with inaccurate location data and the risks. So we need them to be part of the conversation so that we can get the answer right. And if we don't bring them to the table, it's like me trying to tell you how to do your job. Yeah. I can't. I'm not walking in your shoes. So I think it's very arrogant if we think we can't involve whole of industry in a conversation when it's their lives at risk, because at the end of the day, they're on the end of the shovel or the excavator. Yeah.
And inefficiencies, so there's inefficiencies in the system, but you've got some thinking around this and how you're going to create greater efficiencies. What do you mean by that, and what does that look like?
So historically, we've always done the referral service, and I'm sure your listeners really enjoy a PDF. I personally don't. And if you're here in inner city Sydney and you lodge a referral, if I was to do one here for the address, you would end up with 180 pages of stuff. Yeah. 180 pages. Yeah, wow. Hey, who's reading it? Yeah. I'll challenge. If any of your listeners are reading it, they get a gold star from me. Yeah. So we need to acknowledge that the world's moved, and we're now living in an era where everything is digital, interactive and instant. So my goal, and in my perfect utopia world, is that we want to develop hopefully a POC next year, a proof of concept, around what does a digital information exchange that sort of shows a modelling of the utility infrastructure, a bit like a digital twin, that can be developed up with consultation with the construction sector and the engineering industry to say, how do we create a platform that's interactive and instant that you can use during design and engineering to identify where the assets are with accuracy, where we can share as-builts back into the platform, where we can share surveyor markings and drawings back in, that creates an accurate viewpoint of where this information is and where this asset's actually sitting. Yeah. So how do we create this living conversation that creates a digital environment that we can all work with?
So just at a very practical level, right? So I am about to go on and build something. I'm about to go particular area, and we're going to start construction. What you're saying is that we have a digital twin that we can access, that we can see exactly what infrastructure is underneath the ground through some sort of digital platform, real time.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, there still needs to be steps about validating that, because accuracy is only accurate on the day that it was done.
Of course.
We're a country of fire and flood and lovely fun things that change, the lay of the land every day. So we still want to support the safety outcomes around the validating. But if we had a instantaneous platform where there was information being shared in real time, and you've built your project and you can show actually, you said it was on the left-hand side of the road, I've moved it, it's now on the right. Yep. You're sharing that back into the platform for the next project to be able to access.
Yep.
How much better is your world going to be?
Well, it makes sense to me, but how, in terms of when we talk about, and we had a brief discussion at lunch, which was an interesting one, specifically around cybersecurity, right? So, because you need to share data, there needs to be data around critical assets, right? And I certainly know that on the radar, particularly with some of our sister organisations in the US, cybersecurity, critical assets are a really, really big thing. How do we get around that here? Because if we, to all share this data to be able to do these sorts of things, there's got to be some sort of understanding around security, and how does that all work?
So again, we can do it safely.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a onshore hosted, we're looking at drafted up to correct ISO standards in terms of protocols, where the data's stored, how it's hosted. Yeah. We're also saying it should be credentialed users. So as before you dig, you've got to apply for a subscription to the service through us. We credential, we prove that you're a valid Australian business that can access this. We can produce audit logs of who's accessing the data at any given time. We can put timestamps, etc. So I think, yes, cybersecurity is important. And I also want to stress, when we talk about a digital twin, and when it comes to critical assets, we don't need to show every nook and cranny, things that are going to expose, allow people to hack into networks, etc. We need to keep people safe when they're digging holes. So we need to be able to show a presence of network. So we can show that the pipes and cables are there. And let's be honest, walk down the street, how many pit lids do you see?
Quite a few.
So you can see where the assets are. There's going to be an asset under the ground there. Our overhead infrastructure is there, our gas infrastructure. There's a marker post saying high pressure gas every 20 metres. I think there's a reality around what we think needs to be kept hidden and what the world already can see. And how do we bridge the gap? So again, this is a conversation that we need to come together as industry and say what is safe to share in terms of construction and design to keep people safe, to keep projects on time, to allow communities to go home and turn their internet on and have their phones and hot water work, versus what needs to be kept as critical information that can't be shared. Rather than just saying it's a one-size-fits-all, nothing can be shared, because that's where we're at the moment. The approach is don't share anything. But my other concern and my other frustration, and I don't say this flippantly, although it will sound it, if I'm a terrorist, I can do it before you dig and get my 180 pages of PDFs and see the same information. It's already out there. It's been out there since 1984. We've been running this program since the early 80s. So why do we think it's safe because it's on a PDF versus on a digital platform?
Yeah, it's a good point. Now, not everyone know this, but you're a not-for-profit, right? And around the world, that's not always the case.
No.
So, and I know obviously people can tell you're very passionate about this, but also you're passionate about the fact that you are a not-for-profit. So we're very lucky here to be able to have you in Australia doing what you do, right?
Yeah, look, I think we hold it really close to our heart that our core purpose is to keep people and infrastructure safe. I'm not here to make $1 million and drive a Maserati. It's never going to be me. I drive a Hyundai. It's great. But, we put people first in all of our decision making, and our board is really passionate around that strategy around what is going to drive safer outcomes. Because if we keep people safe, the assets stay safe. The water pipe's not jumping in front of you. You're jumping in front of it with your shovel. So we really are passionate around how do we continue to strive and make improvements that might sound really fancy around digital and, better advocacy and policy levers. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to, is this going to make it safer for the guys and girls every day out there working out on sites, working to put in new infrastructure and keep our country moving? Is it going to keep them safe?
Do you look at and you talked earlier today just around you might be going over to the US to do a speech, but a presentation? Do you look at other organisations similar to yours, profit and not for profit, and you go, what they're doing is quite good. That's actually quite good. I mean, I know that you've just talked now very particularly around the whole innovation around a digital platform, but are there other things that are happening around the world that you go, you know what, we could do that here?
Yeah, so the digital thing isn't new. I think New Zealand, their safe smart cities. I think it's City of Wellington's done a full digital twin of their utilities.
Yeah,
amazing. Newer in the UK, which is the National Utility Asset Register, where the government is funding a digital twin of utilities to support better construction outcomes. Fantastic.
Yep.
So they're doing great things. In the US, I think, they're doing some great stuff with the DIRT report, which is it's a great catchy name, but it is literally an annual report on the amount of damages happening across the US that really all of the utilities have gotten behind and reporting annually. That's been running now for nearly a decade. And that allows them to really talk openly and frankly around what's the root cause of damage and how as an industry do we work together to address it. And we've taken that first step with our damage data dashboard, which will be published alongside our economic research in October. But I think that's fostered a culture that's prioritised damage prevention. So in the US and in Canada, most of the utility owners or the asset owners will have a damage prevention as part of their executive team.
Yeah.
They will have a high priority on that emphasis on safer outcomes, better community outcomes, which we don't have here in Australia. I think we're very focused on deliverables and pipe and ground and, amount of asset turned over. We forget the people side of it. And I think the US does a great job of that, as does Canada. And I also see fantastic examples across the UK, Canada and the US of a focus on education and empowering people to work safe every day. Mm-hmm. So each of those countries have dedicated through their equivalent of the RTO sector and the trade sector where utility risk management is a compulsory subject. So any trade qualification, you have to do that. And there's damage prevention emphasised all the way through up into engineering degrees.
Yeah.
We don't have that here.
So we lack the education specifically around. Yeah, okay.
We don't prioritise it. There's one unit of competency through the Australian trade and vet sector called Identify, Locate, Protect.
Yeah.
And it's if you'd like to do it, you can.
Yeah,
it's not compulsory. So, and I think we need to shift our focus on that because we can't just say it's the person that's digging the hole. It's their fault they hit the stuff.
Yeah.
I send out 180 pages 10,000 times a day. That's how many plans requests we process, 10,000 a day. We don't teach anybody how to read the plans. We don't teach anybody how to interpret the safety information that's in there. We don't teach them how to manage the risk out on site. We don't embed any of that skill set. And then we turn around and wonder why we have a $3.8 billion problem every year in this country. We can do better, people. We can. I believe in us.
So do you think, if you were to rate in terms of priority, changing innovation, changing the way in which we do things. You talked about the digital piece, education, but also the messaging, right? And getting the messaging out so that people really understand it. Because it's being able to convince people there's a burning platform here, or potentially. How would you rate them in terms of priority? Where are you focusing most of your time? Because I know you're doing a lot around the advocacy space.
Yeah, so the damage data dashboard was a priority so that we could showcase visually the amount of damage that's happening across the country. Yeah. Our economic research piece, which will get published next month, has been a high focus so that we can showcase the cost and highlight what the solutions can be. So those two hand in hand will be my platform for speaking to both federal and state government around the fact that we need better policy levers that not only mandate that infrastructure be listed with our service, and again, we're a not-for-profit, we're not here to make money out of people, we want to keep people safe. So why are we not mandated? Why is the one service that Australians can access to identify at least, they might say it's a terrible, PDFs, awful, crappy quality plans. Yeah. But a crappy plan's better than no plan. It's better than digging blind. Yeah. It's not mandated. So we've got some of your members won't be members of mine, and
I was going to say to you, how many
moment to shame them. Why are you not a member?
I mean, do you have any data in terms of the local government around Australia? Roughly, do you know how many are members?
Most of the states are pretty good. New South Wales, you raise my eyebrows. There's only about 55% of the councils here in New South Wales, and quite often the pushback we get is cost. And I will push back and say the cost of our referral service and our subscription for most councils is about $20,000 a year with a fully automated tech solution. Yeah. Versus I know one water authority in Melbourne spends $3 million on repairs every year from third-party damage. Which one's cheaper? Yeah, yeah. And look, you are. I would say you're a bit of a visionary, so I think you'll enjoy this question. So, if we were to sit down here in 5-6 years' time, and you paint to me a picture of where you think Before You Dig Australia will be, where would you like it to be, and what do you see? What can you say? We've changed this. Yeah. I'm pretty determined, and I do think nagging is a life skill. It's underrated, but I do believe in it. So in 6 years' time, I would like to say that we've achieved the digital modelling for the construction sector, and we've got a national digital footprint of the utility infrastructure that can be used in design and engineering, and that's normalised. That the current PDF referral platform still exists, but is then refigured to suit the domestic market, the DIY market that are also digging holes each and every day. And we're sending out information that's not 180 pages, but it's 10 that skills them up to dig safely, put their new front fence in their letterbox. We would have mapped that skills competency and have created and embedded compulsory units of utility risk management in every trade skill qualification that digs a hole in this country, so that we're empowering those guys and girls to make good choices out on the work site and mitigate the risk every day. And that we have worked towards harmonised legislation across this country that not only mandates that assets are listed so people can identify and get the plans, but also if you're digging a hole that you've also gotten those plans out on site. And we've reinforced that. And I always say that legislation is not the fix-all, but there is definitely a psychological lever when people go, it's the law, you have to. It changes behaviour. And when you layer that up then with education, and then you layer that up with the right tools designed for the users, for them to be able to identify the risks in the way that is appropriate for them, we start to create a profile that drives that $3.8 billion problem down. And as an industry, we can spend that money better on things that are more important, like hospitals and schools and mental health, instead of wasting it on damages that could be avoided.
Yeah, when you say it like that, it's very compelling. So I guess if you're one of the 45% of councils that's in New South Wales that's not a member, and this has sparked your interest, and you've gone, okay, I need to be. So where would you go? The website is the easiest place to go. Yeah,
byda.com.au, and Eddie's here in New South Wales. He's our local. He would love to come and have a chat to you. Okay. And I'll stop shaming you if you become a member. It's a win-win.
And just a bit about you, Mel. So how did you get into this? Just a little bit about, how you got into Before You Dig Australia. I mean, as I said, you've transformed the organisation, you've unified it, you're doing some great stuff. But what got you into this area, and why are you so passionate?
As a little girl, I used to dream about digging holes. No. So really, how did I get into this? I have always loved working in the industry association space. The last 10 years of my career have been in that space. Yeah. Because I love the change that an industry association can make. Yep. We're the one space where we're not motivated by profit, we're motivated by the people in the industry that we work in. Yep. And I think we have it's a real privilege to be able to create and drive change in that space that's going to outlive us. I really love that. And so I moved to Melbourne in 2019 actually to join Master Builders, and I was working in the C-suite there through COVID. And obviously that was a crazy time for all of us in Victoria. I'd just moved to a new state, felt like a new country, and was locked in my house for 2 years fun times. But I got to the end of COVID and I just felt like I just needed to change. That was a really drawn-out process getting us through COVID and keeping the industry moving, the construction industry, and I just felt like I needed to do something different. And someone said, why don't you throw your hat in the ring for this one? Yep. And I did. And fantastically, the board lent in with where my skill set is, which is about annoying people to do things better. And that's the skill set that I've brought to the fore in this role. And I've been really blessed that I've had a board that's lent in with me challenging the status quo and really challenging how we could do things better to drive better outcomes for industry. I've been very lucky to have a team that came on that transformation journey of merging the 7 businesses into one.
Which is not easy.
Not easy. I don't recommend it. Yeah. It's a lot of wine. Yeah. So we went through that process, but they came on that journey with me and trusted that we could do things differently. And I've got an appetite for change. I love it. I love seeing change come to life. I've got an appetite for risk. That's, we can take intelligent risk. And I also believe that you don't fail, you only learn. Yeah. So, and if you're not having a crack, particularly as a leader, you're not trying hard enough. If you're not making mistakes, we're not trying hard enough. So get out there and have a go. And I've been really lucky that the industry has responded so well to that. Because to be honest, they could have looked at me 6 months in and went, she's mad. Yeah. What on earth is she doing anywhere near us? But the flip side has been, I think, we've created a journey. I've created a narrative and a vision that people can go, actually, I can see myself in that.
And that was the question I was going to ask you. to undergo a transformation, to do what you're doing, what is it what is it that you think you've been able to do as Mell to cajole everyone to sort of move an industry, which is a traditional industry, and move your team and all get them going in the right direction? What is it that you think you've done to do that?
That's a tough question. I don't think there's just one thing. I think there's a power in storytelling that as leaders we need to lean in and develop. I think, you can have the best data, the best facts, and the best research in the world, but if you can't create a story that captures hearts and minds and allows people to see themselves as part of it, you're never going to be able to get it across the line. And whether or not it's the country girl in me, I grew up on a cattle farm, and that having a yarn, over a Sunday roast, that's carried me through. And I really do believe in the power of storytelling, and I bring that to everything that I do. And how can I tell you a story that you can believe and lean into? Yep. So I think that was important. And I think the fact that I've always been honest with our members, our industry, our board, my team, is I don't have all the answers. And by golly, am I going to stuff things up along the way? But my hand on heart, my promise to industry is when we make a mistake, I promise you we will learn from it, and I promise you we will do better. And I believe and walk that every day. I think you've got to carry yourself with integrity, own it when you stuff it up, but double down and fix it. And keep going until you do. And I think there's a trust that builds when you can lead with that empathy and that integrity, that people will give you the space to grow and to change things because they can see that you're a person of your word. So I really believe
But when you're looking to make change, which you've done, and you, just talking to you, you can certainly tell that you do very cleverly put across a very compelling story, but there's going to be people that challenge, and then how do you deal? And that's going to be people that challenge you internally, people that challenge you externally. How do you deal with that, manage that, particularly when you're trying to make change like you are?
Persistence and grit, I think, is a big part of it. And I also think you have to listen. Again, the people that challenge often just want to be heard. And I think so you need to make space to hear that counterpoint of view and to hear the black hat in the room and let them have that space to share, because there may be a gem in there that you've overmissed. So you want to bring that story to the table and let them tell you why you're doing it wrong. And be prepared to learn from that. But I also think too, it comes down to belief. And look, and to this day, I'm incredibly proud of the work that the team's done and how we've created change. But there are still people that throw rocks at the window, and they will always be there. And I think you have to take that step back and go, even with the mistakes or the challenges, do we believe that this is for the greater good? And particularly in this industry, it's slow to move and it can be slow to change. But are we getting it, that incremental change every day, month, year, that's leading to a greater good? And can I wake up in the morning and genuinely believe in that and hand on heart, bring industry on that journey? Yes, I can. Yes, I do. So it's around, facts, research. You want to have all of those things. You want to be making intelligent risk-taking and making sure that you're learning every step of the way. Have the vision, hold on to it, but persistence and grit. Nag. Nag and nag. You're right.
I like it. That's good. Mell, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think Before You Dig Australia is in a very safe pair of hands, and the changes that you're going to make, they're big, and I wish you all very well. And if anyone's going to do it, I think you are, and your board. So thanks ever so much for spending some time with us today. We've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it, and I know that our listeners will. So thank you.
Fabulous. No, thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to, any follow-up weird, wonderful questions you get, shoot them my way. I'm happy to answer. And for everyone out there, don't dig blind, because I will come and wag my finger at you and shame you if you do.
There you go. Good point to end on. Thanks, Mell. And that brings us to an end of another episode of Infrastructure Matters. A big thank you to our esteemed guest, Mell, for sharing her invaluable insights on advancing safety and innovation in utility management. To our listeners, as always, thank you for joining us. And we hope today's discussion has broadened your understanding of the critical importance of safety in infrastructure projects. Be sure to stay tuned for future episodes where we continue to explore the evolving world of infrastructure and public works. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review Infrastructure Matters on your favorite platform. Follow us on LinkedIn for more updates and exclusive content. I'm David Jenkins, signing off, reminding you that in the realm of infrastructure, every detail matters.